Hey everybody, welcome to the Have You Heard This podcast. My name is Hertzog. I'm the host of the show. My guests are comedians. I talk to them about new joke ideas they have, where the ideas came from, where they think it could go, all the possibilities. You get to listen, hear how the stand-up sausage is made, right? Yeah. My guest today is Patrick Hastie, very funny comedian that I was super happy to talk to. Had a great time talking to him about a new joke idea of his. He talks about how he is a terrible liar, but it comes from a good place. He just wants people to like him, man. We all can relate to that. We all want other people to like us. We do all sorts of crazy stuff to do that. We talk for a little bit about the process of moving to New York, how it is intimidating, making friends, and then you can hear us become friends on this episode. It's really inspiring. Patrick is very funny. Like I said, I was happy to have him on the show. You can check out his website, patrickhastie.com. Follow him on Twitter at Patrick Hastie. And check out his podcast on iTunes. It's called We Moved Here for Podcasts. We talk about it on the show. He'll tell you a little more about it. And let's get into it. Here's Patrick Hastie.
You're listening to Come In With Patrick. I'm your host, Patrick Hastie. My guest today is Aaron Hertzog. How are you, Aaron?
Pretty good, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All jokes aside, that's a pretty good idea for a podcast, right?
Coming with Patrick?
Coming with Patrick?
Yeah.
We just tell cum stories and jizz stories. We could have like satellites in other cities, like Jizzing with Jeff. I just got to meet a guy named Jeff.
Just franchise it
Yeah,
all over the place.
Yeah. Ejaculating with Evan, I guess. I don't know. Probably could have thought of a better alliteration.
I mean, Jack would work for that too.
Yeah,
I guess
too.
It doesn't have to be.
No, you're right.
Straight on the.
It's a Wild West, you know. That's what podcasting is. We can do.
Yeah, it's an untapped medium.
How are you?
Not enough of them. I'm doing pretty well, Patrick. Thanks for joining me. This is the first episode I've done of this in a long time.
Oh yeah? How long?
In probably about a year.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Coming back. Hot.
Yeah, here's the history of this podcast. You didn't ask for it, but I'm going to tell it to you.
No, I'm definitely involved.
Started doing it in Philadelphia, where I was living and doing comedy for a bunch of years, and it was fun. We would have like a bunch of comedians would always get together and like shoot joke ideas and help each other out and stuff. And I was like, let's record that and put it out there. It could be fun. And then I moved to New York, and I was like, I can't ask people to do that. I don't know anybody.
I did the same thing. I had a podcast called the Tolstoy Made Shoes Podcast. Maybe not the catchiest title for branding, but and I did this podcast. I did like 50 episodes or so. I did it in Iowa, where I started comedy, and then I moved to New York, and I was like, I'm not gonna ask some idiot who just you're from Iowa, get the fuck out of my face. You know, that's what I expected everybody to say. And so I did 3 episodes in New York, and then just dropped it, just let it go.
Yeah.
But I recently started a new podcast, kind of like you're, starting this one back up, but I started a different one. But I noticed through like analytics that like there was still a bunch of subscribers to my old podcast. So did
you just put it on that feed?
I just started that feed, and so like the only way you notice is if you go to like the link. It's still like Tolstoy Made Shoes Podcast, but everywhere else it's We Moved Here for Podcast.
Yeah.
And then when you go look at the iTunes comments and feedback, it's great because it's all like new stuff. And then, like 2016, and then all of a sudden like 2011, like a bunch of 2011 comments.
Jumps.
Yeah, and they're all good. They're all like, you guys are great, and it makes it so it kind of gives us gravitas,
Yeah,
like,
it helps the ranking.
Yeah. Hopefully,
helps push you up the charts a little bit.
They're like new and noteworthy. I don't know, maybe in 2012, but sure.
Yeah, and then like a year ago, I was like, I'm gonna do it again, and I did like 3 episodes with people that I was just friends with. Like I did one with Allison and James Hastie and Pete Kemple, who I know from Philly.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm gonna start, and I didn't. I was like too nervous, and like this, I've been like trying to ramp up to it, and I asked 4 people this week, and 4 immediately were just like, yeah, that sounds great. And I was like, what the? And it's like people that like I know and I've seen around, but I'm not like really great friends with it. That's why I'm doing this. I want to become friends with people. I'm going to make more friends.
We're buddies now. That's the thing, how dumb our brains are. And like the whole thing about like every time I meet a comic and I'm like somebody, because you move here and you did the same thing. When you move here from somewhere else, you come here with like a whole bunch of, you're putting a lot on New York City.
Yeah.
And so there's comics in the scene and you're like, they're crushing and they're on all of the shows. They must know they're better than I am. And then like one night you say something off to them or like random, and then they're like, hey, we're just friends now. And then all of a sudden you're like, I built you. And then like years go by and I'll see people and I'm like, I was fucking intimidated by that guy. Get out. He's terrible. He's the worst. And there was a time where I was too scared to even be in a room with him, you know?
Yeah. I did that in Philly too. One of my best friends now I saw on a show, and I had the literal thought in my mind. I said, they are so cool, I will never be friends with them. And I hang out with them all the time now.
That's great. You mentioned,
that's just how I work.
You mentioned James Hastie. I just did a show with him a couple weeks ago. He's funny as hell.
Hastie. We moved here together.
I've seen him around a lot, but that was the first time I like saw, watch him do like a 10 minutes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very funny dude. Very, very funny. Cool. Oh, I have a funny story for you that involves joke writing.
Great.
Okay.
That fits.
You can tell me if this is not you. But today when I saw you at the mic, I think I figured out that it was you. Okay, I'll tell you the story the way I've been telling the story for the last 2 years.
Okay.
I had this joke that I wrote about my wife getting a black eye. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I was doing this joke, and it's basically this joke about how my biggest fear is that my wife gets a black eye. Because there's no way that whenever you see a couple where the woman has a black eye, you just assume the guy's a moron or like a monster, you know what I mean? And so that was the bit, that's the joke. Mm-hmm. And I was just ending it, and it just kind of was ending not very strong, you know? And then I was at the mic, and somebody came up to me and heard it and was just like, hey, I have an idea for the end of your joke. Do you mind if I give it to you? And I was like, yeah, go ahead, because I love tags. Please write most of my stuff for me, people. Come up to me. It'll be the best. And whoever it was gave me... You don't
remember who it was?
No, I didn't remember who it was.
Okay.
But they gave me the line of... the punchline is now, and has been since, if my wife ever does get a black eye, I'm just going to give myself 2 black eyes. I had that part figured out, but I just didn't know where to go with it. And then they're like, because then if somebody sees that couple with 1 black eye, they're like, oh no, but if they see a couple with 2 or 3 black eyes, they're like, whoa, somebody beat up that couple. Did you give me that tag?
It was not me.
Okay.
No,
Okay, now I'm kind of sad.
I wouldn't have laughed that hard at it if I was the one who gave it to me.
Because I'm kind of sad now, because the thing I remember was very tall, and like, because you're a very tall guy, mm-hmm. And so like, but I don't think of, like, when I think of you, I don't think of you as a tall person. But today, when I saw you, when I was standing next to you, I was like, oh, you're tall. Maybe you're the tall. So basically, I've been telling people this story for 2 years about how just randomly, this phantom came into the creek, gave me the tag that then I went on tour like right after that, and that was like a crusher the whole time.
Yeah.
And so I now, ever since, have referred to that person as Tagger Vance. And I just think it's a spirit that lives at the creek and just every once in a while pops out.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's Tagger
Vance. And it's been a great...
And it works so perfectly.
It's been a great story until today when I was like, oh shit, I think it was just Aaron.
No, it wasn't me.
But now
so Tagger Vance lives.
Back on. Yeah. But yeah, how do you feel about that, tags and stuff?
About tags?
Yeah, like if somebody gives
you... In terms of like giving tags
to
each
suggesting
other?
stuff to you.
I'm all for it. I mean, that's
I assume.
Because of it. Yeah, I love shooting ideas around with comedians, and like some people like refuse. I have friends who will refuse to use anything that someone else gave them because they just want to be 100%.
And I get that. I do.
Yeah.
It's more of because like sometimes people, this will happen a lot. You'll have a friend that's like, oh hey, with that joke you should do this, and this, and you're like, okay, well that's how you would tell that joke. You know what I mean? But sometimes people will give you a thing like that, like thing I just suggested. That is something that I probably would have got to after 100 times of telling it, but that makes sense for my brain. You know what I mean?
They just help. They help.
Yeah, they pushed it along in the right way,
and it made sense for you.
Mm-hmm,
yeah. That helps when you're work, because I've like had writing sessions with people, and like they give notes that are good. They're not bad notes, but they're just like that's their notes for you. Oh, if you were rewriting this joke, that's how you would tell it.
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine that's like, he's a Chicago guy now, and that's like every time you would try to, I'd have an idea and I'd be like, what do you think of this? Do you think this is funny? And he would be like, yeah, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, well, you can just have that joke and do what you want with it. I guess I didn't need it anyway. And it would always be the most like great. Like, I am telling a story about going to the grocery store. Is this funny? And then all of a sudden, he's got a story about, like, buying a car. And I'm like, wow, okay.
That's really far off.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why some people don't like it a lot, because there is a line where it's like, well, where does this become somebody else's total idea?
Yeah. There's a guy, so, like, you started in Philly. I started in Des Moines. And we had this problem where we didn't have an upper class. We had people that had been doing it 4 to 5 years ahead of me, but and they were all great comics and awesome, like some of my best friends to this day still. But there was no like pros or nobody really to look to who figured it all out that we could then bounce off of, except for this one guy whose name is Willie Farrell, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But and he goes by on stage. Sometimes you'll see him as Willie Fredo Farrell. That's like his dad's last name, I guess. I don't know, but he's billed as that now, so that people don't get confused.
Yeah, What, Will?
Yeah, I think that fucking Will Ferrell's doing the regatta.
It's a stand-up name.
Yeah,
he goes by Willie.
And he's great. He's a lot very similar to Jimmy Pardo.
Okay.
And he came up in L.A. in the early '80s with like Sinbad and like that class of comics. He has a lot of great Sinbad stories that are really silly. But he was from Des Moines. Started comedy in LA, did it there, became a professional, but then moved back to Des Moines when he married a woman that was from there. And so he's just a guy, he's a road guy, and he does a lot of corporates, but he's very Jimmy Pardo-ish, very like, or maybe Jimmy Pardo-ish is very him-ish, you know, it's he owns it himself. But it's very like a lot of really interesting, really great crowd work, never the same hour. And he's
That's
awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he's great, but he would only be around every once in a while. So, and I'm the kind of guy, like, as soon as that dude's in the room, I'm not going to be weird to him, but when I was a year in, I'm like, I want to get everything I can from him. So I'd talk to him, and, like, I always ask questions. And one day I did a joke, and he came up to me afterwards, and he was, like, almost like gunshot. He's like, hey, I have an idea. Do you care if I tell you, like, an idea for that joke? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, please do it. And he's like, really? And he's like, and he told it, and it was great, and it made the joke and stuff. And then afterwards, he's like, you know, I gave a guy, one time, like a couple of years ago, I was at one of these mics, and I suggested a guy, and a guy blew up on me. And it was like, so this is a pro comic who's like too afraid. He could have
to tell like open mic people,
yeah,
who, like, yeah,
because one guy was like, fuck you, what do you got? And it bummed me out so bad. And since then, I think he's way more like, because I've always heard, I mean, he's a great dude anyway, but like, it's that's what we needed so bad, was somebody that would just be like, hey, this is why that's not a funny joke. This is what you need to do to fix it.
Yeah, that's something. It's very it's a hair trigger situation almost, where like I won't go up to somebody randomly, no matter how good the idea is, and say like, hey, I have this idea for your joke.
Yeah.
Unless they're one of my best friends.
Totally.
But like, you know, if you have that relationship with somebody, or they ask you, you know, like that's like much different. But like, yeah, it's because it's like, hey, here's how to make your thing better. And that's part of the reason why I had a tough time like even asking people to do this, because it's like, well, who am I?
Yeah,
and
that's the thing that like,
to be like, hey, I'll help you with this.
I totally get that. I feel like so I moved here in May of 2013.
Okay.
And I was 2 years into comedy, which day by day I can tell you if I think that's a good idea or a bad idea. You know what I mean? Like some days I think, no, wait till you're 5 years in. Some days I'm like, I did it perfectly. But I moved here. I had never done stand-up in New York. I had been to LA, did stand-up there, loved the stand-up, hated the city, hated the travel, all that stuff. And so I was just like, I'm going to move to New York. And so I moved here not knowing any comedians. I didn't have any friends in the city. My wife didn't move with me. She didn't move for another year and a half. So I was just alone in the city. And then I immediately made a really good friend, this dude, Harris Alterman, who's a fantastic comic. And we met, and then for 3 months, we mic'd all the time, went everywhere together. And then he was only in town for an internship. And so, like, 3 months went by. I was actually comfortable, and I was kind of meeting people. And then he was gone. And then all of a sudden, I was just, like, fucked. Like, and I'm not good. I'm that same thing you were saying. I'm not good at talking to people, not good at initiating stuff. Especially if I think somebody's very funny. I'm not good at, like, I get really awkward. Still, right now. Like, I get very into people, or very awkward around. And it's a lot of times, I don't know. It's weird to say, because there's a lot of people that are very funny that I'm friends with. But, like, sometimes I'll just be like, I'm putting a bunch of stuff on this person right now, and so I can't even go talk to them right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, I feel like my first year here was kind of a wash. Like, I kind of fucked it all over. Like, I'm still going to mics all the time. I was still writing. I think my stand-up got way better. But I think that was just naturally because I was like in my 3rd year or whatever, and I think that you just kind of start getting better around that time. But like I feel like I didn't make any friends here until like the middle of my 2nd year here. And then I didn't start feeling like I was even embarrassed to call myself like a New York comic until like September of last year. Yeah. Like I went back and did like a little run tour and did my Friends Festival in Des Moines, and I was there and I was like, oh, I don't belong this anymore. That was when I was like, oh, you're not a Des Moines comic anymore. You're a New York comic now. Yeah. Or at least like a Brooklyn comic or something. You know what I mean? Like and I feel like I have friends that moved here more recently that hit like what took me 18 months took them all 4 months, and I'm like, fuck, you're just better at this than I am.
Yeah, I'm here 2 years. Like this month is I've been here 2 years, and I kind of like really am just starting to feel like I'm not just visiting.
Yeah,
you know,
it's so big, and there's so many people. Andy Sanford wrote a really good thing. I don't know if you guys know Andy. Yeah. If you follow him on Tumblr, he writes things about stand-up in one of the best ways. It's very matter of fact, and it's very honest, and pretty much anything he posts, I'm always like, it'll make me be like, oh shit, that's really good. And then also a lot of times I'll be like, oh fuck, I'm the problem in a lot of this stuff. And he wrote a big long post that was for comics moving to New York City, and it literally dropped like a week before I moved here. And in his post, it was just things you should know. Like, and it was really, some of this is very basic stuff, but some of it was like things that were important to know. And his poll, like his generic city in the article was Des Moines. So like I literally read this on the Greyhound bus to New York. I read this article, and it was like and I didn't know Andy then or anything. It was like he wrote it for me. Yeah. And so like as soon as people move here, because I ran a mic for a long time, and a lot of people when they moved here, they'd come to these mics right away. And so when somebody had just moved here, you could see that like terror on their face and the oh no, what am I doing? And all of their old stuff is not working anymore. And I would just immediately be like, hey, go read this article. It'll make you feel better. It'll be good. And some of the things in there that were great was like, one thing that I think is a lot of people need to know is like, no one in New York is keeping tabs on the hierarchy of your comedy scene. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you're the best comic in Des Moines. No one gives a fuck. And that was the thing that like, I would have naturally known it, but to actually see it written out was really important. Yeah. And what made me go off on this tangent was the thing about how like, people aren't even going to notice you live here. You can, if you hit mics, 5 times a week, it's going to still take you like 7 months before people actually are like, oh yeah, that's a person in the scene now. Because there's so many people that are just pop up and they're gone. Pop up and they're gone.
And people who come here to visit for a little while and leave and come back a couple months, a year even. Yeah. And sometimes that'll happen where you'll be talking to somebody and they'll be like, oh yeah, I've been here for a year and a half. And you're like, what? Like, I feel like I just met you. And then they're like, well, yeah, but there's also so many things here that two people can be going out every night to multiple mics and never see each other. They could see each other once every 3 months.
That's one of my favorite New York things is when you introduce people who it blows your mind they don't know
each other.
I was on a show like last month, and Emily Winter, very funny comic, and Jake Fromm, very funny comic. They were like, oh hey, and I was like, oh my god, I see both of you 10 times a week. Just how has this not ever happened?
Yeah, it's just in your minds they've had to.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I really it's wonderful, and also there's 1,000 different scenes. So sometimes like you'll go to an open mic and there's like 30 people there and they all know each other and none of them know you. You feel like you're in Chicago or something. You feel like you dipped into another city, and then you're like, well shit, I'm just gonna do my good stuff. You know what I mean? And like they're like, they're all gonna walk away thinking I'm funny, but. Yeah, that happens here, and I don't think that happens maybe it happens in bigger other scenes, but I feel like New York's the scene where there's just so many comics.
There's the mini scenes and like different not groups, but almost clicks, scenes like click cities, When I moved here, I was like after that first like 4 months, I was like I'm really doing it. I felt like I was really connecting with New York, and I was meeting people, and I was nervous, but at least I felt like I was doing something. And then I went to a mic at UCB East,
and I didn't know anybody there. Nobody gave a fuck. And
that's another. You have like stand-ups who will mess with improv. Yeah. Stand-ups who hate improv and think it's the worst thing in the world.
That's what I realized was that I wasn't part of the New York scene. I was part of the Bushwick scene.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I had figured that a little bit out, and that's the thing. And then there's the improv stand-up divide. There's the Manhattan Brooklyn divide.
I don't ever go to clubs.
Yeah,
I never go to comedy clubs.
I'm a very goal-oriented person. In stand-up is the only thing I'm goal-oriented in. But and that was the thing that I was like, I want to try to get past at a club. And then I was like, I auditioned once and I was like, oh, I don't think I give a fuck about nothing against the clubs. I think they're great, and anytime I've done shows there, they've been super fun. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, I don't think that's a route I want to go right now. And it was just it blew my mind, because when I moved here, I thought like the most important thing would be to try to get in at like Greenwich Village and all those clubs. I thought that was what the only path. And I was like, oh, I think you can be here for 2 years and never fuck with them and be doing fine. You know what I mean? But also, it'd be fantastic. If any of them would like to have me, I'll definitely go there.
I'll put them in the description of the episode, so if they have Google alerts for their own names.
That would be terrible.
Do you want to hear my opinion on on the timeline of you moving here? I think 2 years is the perfect time to move here. I moved here after 8 years.
Oh, Jesus.
And that was way too long.
Yeah, I feel like that's bad. I don't know.
It was terrible.
I can tell you that.
It was awful.
I don't know if 2 years is good, but I know 8 years is bad.
I think 2 years is great, because you figured out kind of a little bit how to write a joke and what stand-up is and how to act at open mics and stuff like that. You know etiquette, things like that. And you're still hungry. You want to go out every night. You want to do. I had gotten into a pattern in Philly where I could do a couple mics a week, get booked on shows. I was booking my own room every week where I could just do 10 minutes and use that as a mic. Yeah. So it was like I didn't have to grind for for lack of a better hashtag. I didn't have to do it, so I had to like try to get in that pattern again, and I still haven't fully got there. I still haven't fully got there yet.
That blows my mind. That I have a friend that same kind of thing. They had been doing it a couple years longer than me, and they moved here. I watched it happen to them. I watched them have to hit that wall of being like, oh, I'm no one now. I have to start all over, kind of. And at 2 years in, also I started in the podcast generation. You know, I started in 2011. So like, I started knowing, like, before I did my first open mic, I had heard Mark Maron say it takes 5 years to be good and 10 years to be great. You know what I mean? So like, I knew that stuff. And so I think Jerry Seinfeld said that, but I think Mark Maron quoted him. Are we good? Okay. But like, I knew that going in. So like, I never expected shit. And to a problem where I'd been here about a year and a half or whatever, and I was starting to write stuff that I kind of liked a little bit and stuff like that. And I was starting to get on shows one or two a month or something. And I felt myself getting comfortable, and I realized what I was doing was like, anytime I was having a really good set, I'd be like, oh my God, can you believe I had such a great set? Like, to myself, I'd be like, I'm only 3 years in. And then anytime I bomb, I'd be like, well, what the fucking matter? I'm only 3 years in.
I still have 2 years to be good.
Yeah, and then I realized, like, that's killing me. Like, I gotta stop. And so then I had a horrible, like, I feel like my 2014 was just a lot of shit. But I think I came out of it, like, in a good spot. And I feel like now my brain's better at stuff, you know? Like, I forced myself to not give myself outs and to work. You know what I mean? Like, if you have a bad set, own it and figure out what happened. And if you have a good set, feel it, but know that there's another set tomorrow, and that could be bad, you know? And I'm glad I got to experience that here. Whereas, because, like, I have friends. Do you know Brandon Ream?
Yes.
Okay, he's a very funny guy. I highly recommend him. He, for the podcast, for shows, I don't know, whatever, ladies, we started comedy, like, a month and a half apart. And then I moved to New York at 2 years in. He moved to Madison, and then did stand-up in Madison for, like, a year and a half or whatever. And then bounced around, I think, Chicago for a little bit and Des Moines for a little bit. And then then he moved here at 5 years in. So, like, or 4 years in, whatever. And so, me, like, technically, we're very similar. We started together, we know this stuff. But then, like, he got all this other experience and knowledge that, like, I have no idea about. Like, Madison and going and doing a lot of road stuff like that.
Road stuff, yeah.
And so when he moved here, him hitting New York was a very different thing. And he's also, he was a much more defined comic. He knew exactly what he wanted to do a little more. And so it was really interesting, but it was one of those things where I was like, oh, it's crazy that we're really good friends and stuff. Yeah, we experienced this whole thing totally different.
Yeah.
And yeah, all that shit blows my mind. I'm really interested in the comics
experiences and how people come here and everything like that.
Yeah, comedy is rules. Should we move back? I keep thinking, every once in a while I'll have a bad set and then I'll just Google hog futures in Iowa and be like, I could really get into this, you know?
Philly's so close I could go back whenever.
Yeah.
I can go back now.
Yeah.
I can get a bus ticket and just be gone.
Yeah, I was like that. Tommy McNamara has that great joke about like, I just moved to New York. I'm really excited to move back to Chicago in 3 years.
I always said if I left Philly, I'm not going back to Philly.
Yeah. Oh shit. Fuck no. Yeah.
I will go back to where I grew up, which is the coal region of central Pennsylvania,
and then just be the king.
Where there is no comedy.
Oh sure. Yeah.
I will not. No. If I leave, I'm not going back to Philly to do open mics and run a weekly show there. I'm done forever.
For sure. Yeah. I think it'd be funny to just bounce around. And I've seen people do this kind of thing, but like. They do New York for a few years and they're like, fuck this place. And then they go to like LA for a couple of years. Like, and then they end up like in like Boise or some shit. And they're the guy in that scene. And you're like, whoa, that's a weird life.
I could go back to my hometown and buy 3 houses for a year's rent here.
Oh yeah. My family, I grew up on a small farm in Southwest Iowa. And like my life could be so different if we were still there. Oh, all the time. Did you give yourself like an out? Be like, I'm going to give it 3 years or 5 years or anything?
No, I don't have any. I have a fake timeline in my mind.
Okay.
Where it's not a real one, and I'd have to do a lot of work to make this happen. But my fake timeline is, if I'm still doing comedy and have a day job at 35.
Okay.
I want to quit my day job and then give it until I'm like 40.
Yeah.
Like working part-time seeing what I can do. So if it's like, if I haven't been able to quit my day job by 35, I'm going to quit it anyway.
Yeah. I love that.
Go till 40 and then become a teacher or whatever after that. There's no way I will be able to save enough money for 5 years of living.
Yeah.
But I could just become, I don't know. It's like a pipe dream of a situation.
Yeah,
I'm hoping something happens where I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But who knows?
That's what
it's only 3 years away. We'll
see.
That's nothing.
Set your alarms, guys. I remember when I started at 26, and I remember being like, I don't know. I feel like I was very smart about certain things, but very dumb about other things. I thought that I was going to be able to, like a year or two in, start getting like road stuff. And then maybe try featuring and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I would like to not have to have a day job when I turn 30. I was 26 when I started. And I was like, and then once I turned 30, I was like, okay, I can just start telling everybody I'm 29. And then I just kind of gave it up. And so now my kind of timeline, which also like, I'm very throw everything at the wall. Mm-hmm. I started at 26. I have friends that started when they were really young. And so I feel like I started late. Like Nikki Glazer is like 3 months older than I am, you know. And so I think she's wonderful, but she was just smart and started super young.
Just the age thing gets in your, even though
I wouldn't be anything. All of my fucking stories are from that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't.
And like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like that like the age of someone doesn't matter. There are people who
number,
are starting.
Right, all right.
There are people starting who are 40,
and
there are people who've been doing it since they're 16 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but it gets in your head.
It does. And so kind of my time, I guess similar to what you were saying is, when I'm 10 years in, I would like to have something happening.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's little, big, because also I have no interest in being like, that sounds so bad, but I'm not looking to get famous.
Yeah.
I just want to make a living.
Make a living doing it. Yeah, that's always been what I said too.
Yeah, and so like, I feel like at 10 years in, my wife will be 12 years into her career. And that's also around the same time that we've always talked about wanting to have kids. Mm-hmm. So it's around the same time, around the time I'm 35, 36.
Stay at home dad.
That's my goal. Is what I would love to do is have it. It would have to line up perfectly where I can be the dad that stays home and then goes out and does like my fucking rock shows on the weekends and go out 3 nights a week or whatever, and then still live in New York, and then ideally someday, I don't know how, probably for my wife's job because she's got a really great career. That's my best advice to young comics is marry a landscape architect. But like, I would love to have a house or some property in Southwest Iowa because then we could go back there in the summers and all my family's there. But then also when I want to do the Midwest, having like a house or a place that I can bounce back to, and where you don't have to fly to New York all the time. But I feel like I'll be here forever till I die, which could be soon. We don't know.
You never know.
Yeah.
When the Reaper's gonna knock at your door.
No, he's here.
Oh boy.
I love this shit. I don't know if this is what the podcast is, but
it's not at all. No.
I love it.
I will talk about it all day.
This is my new hour, by the way. All that stuff I just said. This is my album, actually.
Oh, wow. We could press it.
Yeah, coming with Patrick. Oh yeah. What a depressing job, huh? Okay.
Do you have an idea that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I have some things I was mumbling through. I'm trying to figure out if I want to work on a new idea I have, a bit that I have that I just have a problem with. That I've never been able to figure out the ending, or just something silly and little. Like, what do you think is the best route?
Do you want to put this out as an episode, leave it up to the voting public, and come back?
Sure, yeah. All right, get your hands out.
Right.
No, I can just talk. I'll just talk real quick about this one. I'll give you the gist of the story, and then maybe you can tag or Vance it up where it's
You know what I like to do when someone tells a story?
Yeah.
There's kind of an exercise that I like to do when I'm doing like writing things, and it works, I think, for stories. I'm going to stop you if I have any specific thoughts.
Sure, yeah.
And ask you to either explain more or go into more detail or something like that.
Okay, great.
You want to do that?
Yeah. And
all
also, this is a bit that I love that idea. For me, 3/4 of it is how I like it. I'm all for changing shit because I fucking hate. I wrote this like 2 years ago and it's still not going nowhere. It's one of those things also where this joke is, I have a 7-minute chunk. This is the first 3 minutes of it, and everything works except for the end. And then I roll right into the next chunk, the next joke, which works really well. But I feel like it would be so much better if this could hit. And basically the story is, and I apologize if you've heard this before, it's annoying, but that's what the show is, so I shouldn't have done that. When I was in middle school, do you want me to tell it like I tell it on stage, or just tell you the story?
Tell me the story.
Okay, when I was in middle school, I wanted people to like me, so I told them that my cousin was the actress Brittany Murphy, right? Because I thought it would be fun to like get them on my side.
It's far enough away.
Yeah, and it was 1999. Like, no one was going to Google it. Clueless was the only thing she was in, and everybody loved Clueless. Like, my buddy Alistair and I used to watch Clueless all the time. And so I didn't say Alicia Silverstone. I wasn't crazy. I said like the 5th lead.
You planned it out very well. Was it that thought out? You were like, I can't pick.
Well, I just was kind of like, I kind of wanted to be like, who's somebody that I could lie and say I'm related to, and no one would be able to call me out on it. And at the time, she was really funny, and I liked her, and so I said that, and the whole thing was
her part in Clueless was great.
She was super funny. Yeah,
she was great.
She was the crazy one. Yeah. And so like, and what I say is like the whole like in the line joke, I'm like she's the funny one that has brown hair and looks like maybe she's got family in Iowa, And so I told everybody that, and it was cool. But then all of my best friends we met that. I mean, I'd known these people my whole life, but like that's when we all really got together. And then fucking her career just kept going. Yeah. And I never was like, hey guys, I was fucking around. And so like
didn't she get Oscar buzz one year?
Yeah.
For
she was 8 Mile. Maybe maybe
there was another one, the one where she played like, she said like, I'll never tell. Whatever the movie is where she says
don't say a word.
Don't say a word. I think that's where I'll never tell comes.
Yeah. Isn't that
say
it?
A word.
There's a line that I say because that's what I say is I'm like, but I don't know if you guys know, but like Brittany Murphy's career just kept getting going. So I'd be in high school walking down the hall, and somebody'd be like, "Hey Patrick, saw your cousin's tits in 8 Mile, pretty great," and I'd have to be like, "Yeah, our moms are sisters," And then the thing is about how I stopped telling people that, and it kind of went away, and I forgot about it, and I started. I went to college and I started making friends, by telling smaller lies that are easier to contain, like, yeah, I finished high school. No, I did, but that's a line. But then so then I just forgot all about that. Mm-hmm. And then I eventually like met my wife, or we dated and I fell in love and everything, and then we got married. And then I totally forgot that they ever even did that. It wasn't a thing in my mind.
Yeah.
Until December 20th, 2009.
When you got married?
When Brittany Murphy fucking died, right? Because then my Facebook blew up, my phone, like, I got letters in the mail, like, I got more condolences than her real family,
Oh, shit.
And then, of course, like, my real people are seeing this. This is where the joke falls apart. This is the end. Mm-hmm. Is I'm like my real family saw this. Like, my wife, she had never heard this. She's like, what? Who died? And I have to be like, honey, she's like, what did you do? And I'm like, honey, you don't understand. Everybody liked Brittany Murphy, and I wanted them to like me. And see, that's where the whole joke falls apart. I like the end. I like the blow up of like, because really that's all it was. It was being like, what the fuck did you do? And I'm like, yeah, I'm stupid. That's how I have a lot of jokes that basically I did something stupid. Time went by. My wife found out about it, and she's like, oh, you're stupid. And that's like a lot of my jokes. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, like, the best way to wrap it all up is just kind of like, because I open it.
To explain it to your wife.
I open it with, like, how I want to be liked.
Yeah.
And, like, that's the huge thing to me. Like, how I had a line that was like, as a matter of fact, like, if you see me on the street, if you just walk up to me and be like, hey, Patrick, I like you, and you look great today, we don't even have to have the rest of the conversation. We can just walk away with that. And so, like, I want to be liked, and then I go into that thing, and then at the end when I'm like, everybody liked Brittany Murphy. And, like, for a while, that was hitting so hard.
Everybody liked Brittany Murphy.
But then it just fell off, and I don't know if I'm putting too much time between the setting it up and then if that works, not as a callback necessarily, but, like, if it just feels like that always, it never ends strong. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I should figure out, like, a silly thing or what, but...
I was almost going to say, could there be more time between it? Could it be something that, like... Maybe you go off on a tangent about something else, and then later come back to it, and like when people realize where you're starting to come back with, they start feeling smart for knowing that they're on board with it.
That is a thing that I'll say when I say sometimes I'll be like, and then that's great. Set up something little in the middle of there, mm-hmm. and then I can come back and then when
you come back, people think you're done talking about Brittany Murphy. Yeah. And then when they realize you're about to start talking about her again, great. They feel smart. Did you ever do that? Like when I was younger and I would watch stand-up specials, mm-hmm. I could always feel the callback coming totally. Because the comedian was such a professional. Yeah. They like they like let you know it was coming, but you thought that you were as smart as them mm-hmm. for knowing that it was coming. And I was like 16 years old watching like Dave Chappelle's Killing Them Softly. And I knew that I knew that the baby at the end was going to try to sell him weed. And then I felt as funny as Dave Chappelle, but it's like, no, Dave Chappelle did that, not
he made
me.
You do it. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And that also, this is a thing where this is a joke I've been doing since like the end of 2013, kind of. So it's a way to breathe new life into it by making this work. I love that. I like the idea of going, I don't know what, but having something else there. Because there's a thing that happens, one of my favorite things about that joke is I'll say, because I don't know if you guys know, or no, then I'll be like, and then I don't know how I would set it up in this aspect, but I'd be like, and so then everything was great until December 20th, 2009. Mm. Because when I say that, some people right away are like, oh shit, they remember that Brittany Murphy's dead.
That she's dead.
People remember when, and sometimes I've done it and people have been, that's been a punchline. Other times people, nobody, and then I'm like, Brittany Murphy fucking died, and then that blows it. And so it's one of those things where like the big thing happens, and okay, I love that. I love
you
the
could
idea
talk.
of something else. Yeah.
So there's a progression in there about how
went through college and all that.
Like, and also just how that's how much people love celebrities. Mm-hmm. That one, you thought that would be a plausible lie. Yeah. To get people to like you by just saying that you're, and it did work. Yeah. And then it did work. Mm-hmm. That's how much people love celebrities and want to like be close to it. And then so you could even talk about how much people love. So it could be like a separate mini bit about people loving celebrities. Maybe something about celebrities' deaths affecting people.
Do you think? What about like? Okay, so like I have other stuff because I have a lot of stuff about that where I've lied to get myself out of situations or things like that, mm-hmm. or I've told fucking white lies and shit. Do you think? Okay, so like I have these two bits about when I first started dating my wife. One of them is on our first date. I told her that I had been bungee jumping because we were watching TV. And the way I set this up is...
is this also a lie?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's another suggestion that I was going to have.
That's what I was thinking is, I was just wondering if it's too much because I have this thing about how I... on your first date, you know, and at the time, like, I didn't know it was going to be a career relationship. I thought this was just a lady I might get to fuck. And there was silence, and we were watching TV, and there was, like, ESPN on or something, and somebody bungee jumped, and I was like, oh, I bungee jumped once. And I never had, but I was just talking, because, you know, I was filling time, and, which I can fill time if any of you need to book me on your shows, but, okay,
with
so...
lies.
Yes. So I said that, and my wife was like, oh, okay. And then, like, fucking, I don't know, like 4 years later, she went bungee jumping. And she went bungee jumping. She was doing a study abroad, and she was in New Zealand, and she went bungee jumping. And she told me, she emailed me, or maybe I think she called me or whatever. But she was like, I went bungee jumping today. And I was like, are you fucking crazy? You could have gotten killed. And she was like, but you did it. And I was like, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? And she's like, you told me. And I had no idea because I forgot it. You know? And so it was really funny. And in the joke, I'm like, she's like, I only did it because I knew if you could do it, I could do it. And I was like, you're a fucking moron. You could have died. Our dog would have not had a mother today.
If you could do it, I could do it. Like, you were her inspiration?
Yeah. And so that's, I can maybe fit that in there. And then I have another thing that maybe it's just too much hat on a hat or whatever. But I have another thing about how I lied to her and told her that my middle name was Lando. Because she was making fun of Star Wars all the time. She didn't know anything about it. And so I lied to her and told her my name was Lando. And then, like, a couple years later, she found out and she was like, hey, what's all this Keith bullshit? And so maybe I could boom. I could do the same thing of like, and then later I learned that I could make people just like smaller, more controlled lies. And then I met a girl, and then I could maybe jump into those things.
I think that works.
And be like, and then life was fine, and everything was cool until December.
Because that's a good.
And maybe I can have her.
It's a good. It's stuff you already have.
Yeah.
It fits the theme and dips away from it for a minute, and it gives you a chance to call those back at the end with your wife. And why would you lie?
What also I like most about this is it's giving me, I mean, this 6-7 minute chunk is now going to be like 10 minutes. And so and also it's one of those tricks where, like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like I tell stories, you know? And so like sometimes I'll tell stories and to me it's 7 different jokes. But, like, I did a show in Iowa one time, and I did, like, 20 minutes, and I got done. And this Iowa comic, who's very funny, and, like, she's smart. She's not, like, a regular person. She knows how comedy works. She came up to me, and she's like, wow, that was just 2 stories, huh? And I was like, yeah. She was like, that must be what New York does to it. I was like, I guess. And I didn't even know what she was saying. But then I realized because it was just, like, it was 2 chunks. It was 2 chunks, It was all married stuff and all my family stuff. Mm-hmm. But to her, it's seamless, and I think that's what this would do. Is this would all seem like one thing. Mm-hmm. So if I did it on a set, it would look. It's one of those things where people would be like, "Oh shit, look at him up there," but actually, really, it's working my ass off on it.
Yeah. But in reality, each of those chunks, if they're 10 minutes long, you like worked on them 3 minutes at a time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and that's
for
what
you, it's like, oh, I did this,
and I'm real into that shit. That was my favorite thing about moving to New York was like, because I've not always, but I've been telling stories. Like, kind of what the same thing I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. I've been doing that since I was, like, a year and a half in. But, like, when I was in Iowa, all of my stories that I moved here with, I realized all these 6 and 7 minute stories were 2 and 3 minute stories. That Iowa audiences were just awesome and let me,
I end up being very long-winded in bits, too, and, like, saying stuff that I don't have to.
And New York will beat that out of you in the best way because, like, I learned how to get the same points across in the words I need to. With also, when I was in Iowa, I spoke real slow, which was so stupid because like I talk fast as a human, so it was really weird to be like, it was really weird to like go on stage and be like off stage I'd be like, all right, buddy, I'm gonna go up there and go on stage, and then get on stage and be like, hey everyone, how's it going? And I'm like, that's not me.
Is that what you thought you were going to be on stage? Was there something like comedically with that, or?
I did a show at a Funny Bone once, and afterwards a dude was like, hey, really funny, you should slow down. And he was probably right. I was like a year in. And I was
like always good advice.
Yeah, at the time I was trying to fit like, whatever, like 7 minutes of jokes in a 5-minute set. Mm-hmm. And it was good advice, but I took it too far. Mm-hmm. And so now, like, just recently, I had a friend of mine come up to me and he was like, hey man, that's really good, but like, you gotta slow down. Like, you're running over punchlines. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing that on purpose. Like, I like doing that. I love it when I can get in a run and some people are getting it, and some people aren't. And that obviously, like if I was a professional, I think I'll eventually figure it all out. Mm-hmm. But like, there's something very fun about that now of like, rattling something off. Yeah. And then also you get the trick of you get to do like Scott Noslin's got that great joke about how his delivery's so slow, and what's great about that is because he doesn't have to write as many jokes. And I feel like it's the other way because I want to get as much shit as I can out. So like I can do it in 3 minutes what, you know, if somebody else with a slower delivery told it would probably be 5 minutes. Dude, I think that's great. I'm glad we talked about that. I feel like that really pumps it all up. And what I love about that is that so that joke goes into the second half of that joke, which I feel like is pretty solid, is the story. And it also goes with wanting to be liked and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And it goes into this story about how I was on a train and I got attacked. And in real life, in the real story, which, what is this? Breaking news, if you've heard this joke. In real life, my wife was with me when this happened. But when I would tell it on stage, people would just... I could see people get way too concerned because like my wife was there. Because it's
you and your
But I was on a train where a guy started attacking people. Jeez. And like fucking terrifying. And we were on an A train, so you can't go between doors. And we were going between Brooklyn, between whatever Fulton and High or whatever it is, or Chambers and High, whatever those are. And so we were just underground. And this guy just decided that was his moment to fucking attack people. And it was packed, and I was on one end, and I just could see people's heads smashed up against windows. Blood was everywhere. Babies were crying. He knocked over a stroller, but I didn't know. I couldn't see who he was because there were so many people, and so then everybody rushes down as soon as he starts panicking. I didn't know who the bad guy was. Yeah. And so everybody rushes down to where I'm at on the train, where me and her were, and then this guy turns around. A guy started fucking with the door. And then he turned around, and everybody ran back to the other end, and I was like, "Oh, this is the guy." Yeah. They all knew. I just didn't know.
Running away
and he was just right there, right in front of me and Stacy. And so she turns to run, and he reaches for her backpack, and then I turn to like get her backpack out of the way, and then I'm standing right there, and then I thought he was gonna punch me, and I don't know how to fight, and so I freaked out, and then the train car fucked up, and he fell down. He literally lost his footing. Yeah. Went to the ground, and then a bunch of people jumped on him and held him down, and they were beating the fuck out of him. Like all these dudes on the train just beat the shit out of him. I just stood there because I was terrified. I say in the joke, and then I just ran into the group, and I was scared, and I was freaked out, and I was really horny, and I didn't know, and that's what I say in the joke, but I wasn't horny. But gets a pretty good laugh though. But then what happened was when we got to the station. They were like, "What happened?" And everybody was like, "Oh, that guy knocked him down." Because everyone was behind me, and all they saw was me stand there, and then the guy fell down. So they thought I hit him or something. You were the
hero,
and I was, and the cops were like, "Is that what happened?" And I'm like, "Mm-hmm, yeah, sure." If that's what everybody's saying. And so the whole thing is that I lied to a New York cop to make a bunch of strangers like me.
Yeah. And that brings it back.
Yeah, and so it becomes this. It becomes fun, and that's a fun thing to do. Like, God, I'm really excited about it. Now I don't know where I'm going to do fucking 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard. That's the one thing that's hard.
Yeah. But so that's super exciting. And also that's kind of that was my I don't know, I always think of bits and years and stuff. And that was my big, excuse me, that's what came out in 2014. That was my 2014 stuff. Mm-hmm. And you just keep writing. And then I'm like, well, where does that fit in anymore? And I'm writing kind of different stuff now. And so now I'm kind of trying to find a way to start working that stuff back in. And that makes it really easy. So that was great. I feel like I learned something.
That's really fun. I'm curious about the Brittany Murphy thing.
Yeah. It's
you were really so people were sending you letters.
No, what's really funny is that I guess I only told 5 people or 4 people. But
you knew it would.
It was a huge deal. Yeah, and when it happened, a lot of people had heard about it.
You were like, I'm gonna plant. I'm gonna plant these seeds. I know it's gonna grow. I know how rumors work.
But there are some people who are like, I don't think that. They're like, I don't ever remember fucking Badger. I did that joke in Omaha one time, and some people were like, I fucking never knew you. No, you never told anybody. And I was like, I did. I just maybe. And also, once it came, I just went with it. Yeah. So if people brought it up to me, I'd be like, mm-hmm. But I wasn't. I stopped spreading it before that year ended, before the end of 7th grade. And also, we were in a small town where we all grew up together and stuff like that. And so, I don't. It's one of those things that, it's a huge thing to me, but and to a couple of my friends. But there's other people who are just I don't know, you fucking cared, and, But it was one of those things that I thought everybody cared. It's just this other thing.
Yeah, it was way bigger to you.
Maybe this is too much time. I don't know. But I have this other thing about how I walked Macaulay Culkin's sister's dog, and I was trying to talk about it on stage, and nobody gave a fuck.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, that is one of the most interesting things about me. And the audiences were like, who cares? And it was one of those things that, because sometimes you write something and you're like, God, this is gonna work. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times especially like the further you go, you're like, okay, I've got a pretty good gauge. And I had this thing about how I was there and nobody gave a fuck. And I was just like, I really thought the fact that I walked a famous kid's sister's dog would kill, and nobody gave a fuck. So that's just one of those things. Like, to me, it was huge, and to other people, they're like, nobody gives a shit.
I think that's funny right there.
Maybe I should work on something like that. Just about how the fact when I was telling people nobody cared.
Yeah.
Because I was there when Robin Williams died, and that's why I thought it was funny. Because I was walking her dog when I found out. And so I was trying to set the joke up with now I'm just doing an open mic now, but I was trying to set the joke. This was the other joke I was going to do because this was something that was just not working at all, and maybe it's because it's not funny. But I would ask, I'd be like, where's the weirdest place you've ever cried? Mine is Macaulay Culkin's sister's apartment, and I would get a little bit of a laugh, but not as much as I thought. And I'd be like, I was her dog walker. When it popped up, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to take this because it'll be awesome. I expected I'd like open the door and there'd be like paint cans flying at me and shit. That literally is the only laugh in the joke. But then basically, and then that's where my wife called me to tell me Robin Williams died, and then I just cried in their apartment. And then my first thought was like, oh no, did Robin and Macaulay ever work together? And then I Googled it, and they didn't. But Robin and Kieran worked together. Should I leave a note? See, you kind of laugh. Audiences did not fucking care. When I say audiences, I mean comics
just
at open mics.
The open mics.
But I feel like there's something very funny. Maybe I'll just save it as like a throwaway. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you're doing like 20 minutes and you're doing really well.
Throw something in to see how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Oh, do they just like anything right now? Or
yeah.
Do they like me no matter what?
Yeah, that's my favorite. What's really funny is, I don't know how you organize your jokes, but I do like track listings, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, so for my Brittany Murphy story, that joke's just called Brittany Murphy.
And it's...
Yeah. And then I have another joke that is, I have a joke about Marissa Tomei, and so that's her. And then I have a joke about a dog that I used to walk named Harry Potter. And so basically just one time, I looked at one of my set lists, and it just said, Harry Potter, Marissa Tomei, Brittany Murphy. And I was like, this just looks like a hit list. That a third of it's knocked out, but also a third of it is just a fucking, like, a fictional character.
It's a fictional wizard.
Like, if somebody saw this on the street, they would definitely call him Marissa Tomei, right? That's fun.
Yeah.
Really petered out there, is that?
No, it worked. It worked well.
Is this what you wanted? Is this what the show's supposed to be?
Yeah.
Is it long? I
think so. I mean,
never got a grasp of where the time code was.
You know what? I messed up.
Okay.
And it's like we're 1,549 bars into.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what that core. We're in 120 beats per minute and 4 times. So I don't know what that translates to in minutes and seconds.
I also noticed we're in C major, so that's pretty rad.
Yeah. We can auto tune if we need.
Yeah, no.
But how do you feel about it?
I feel great. I think this was super fun. I could literally sit and talk about comics experiences moving to New York all day. And that's also what my podcast, we moved here for podcast. It's plugged, right?
Plug it.
We moved here for podcast. It's on iTunes. It's with my buddy Albert Kirchner, who he moved to New York from Seattle. So, and that's what we do is we interview comics who started comedy in another city and moved to New York because of comedy. Not people who just moved here or whatever and then they kept doing it. And I love that. I love the minutia. I love when you hear people like, I love the things of people who are like, there are people who will be like, I fucking hate the Creek. And then there's people who are like, I fucking hate Grizzly Pear. And I'm like, really? Because I don't give a shit. Like, I love the Creek, and I don't, like, the Grizzly Pear is fine, but everybody.
They have, like, one bad experience somewhere, and then.
And that was the thing.
I got food poisoning at Burger King once, and haven't eaten it in 10 years.
Totally, yeah. and that's super, I think that's super interesting, especially when it's people who I'm like, there'll be people who are really like, oh yeah, I don't fuck with Brooklyn mics, and it's like, you crush it Brooklyn mics,
borough.
Yeah.
Or like even saying like you don't like the Creek. The Creek is 100 different shows run by 100 different people.
It's so funny. And that was the thing, because I'm unabashedly, I love the Creek, because I grew up, we didn't have a club in Des Moines. There was a Funny Bone there, but it didn't give a fuck about us. And we had a rock club that was kind of that's where our, like, open mics were at this place called the House of Bricks. That's not even a place anymore. So, like, I never had a home club. Mm-hmm. And so now, living in New York, I feel like the Creek and the Cave kind of is that for me, because it's the first place I found to be funny in New York and all that. But I perform everywhere in the city. And then one time I heard somebody bitching about, like, some idiot was just like, oh, fucking Creek people. And I went off on him. I was like, you know what? That's you. That's in your head. There is no such thing as Creek people. And I think it was David Piccolomini who I was with.
Swamp Thing.
Yeah. But, like, he had in his head this identifying of what comics are. And then I think it was David Piccolomini who I was with. And he was like, you run 2 shows at the Creek and an open mic. You're Creek people. And I was like, oh, fuck, am I? And then I was like, oh,
I know who that guy's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what am I doing wrong now? I was like, is he... Ugh. But it's just that people will give so many venues power.
Well,
and
it's projecting their insecurities on a place. Well, it's not me. It's this place that's a clique.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not successful.
Yeah, there's things. There's. I think any room can be cool. Then again, there are places that I think are great, venues that I think are awesome, that I love getting to perform in, but I don't do well there for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And that's all, I think, superstition and dumb shit, but, like, I don't get angry about it and tell other people not to perform there just because I have bad sets there, you know? Like, I understand that that's me, and I don't think other people are that self-aware. I think that's part of what starting at 26 is I think I was a little more...
You know yourself a little more.
Yeah, I had made mistakes and figured shit out. And I think when you start at 16 or 18 or whatever, you kind of miss that. You kind of miss that step of... And so, like, it's really easy for you to live and die by what article you weren't... Or what list you weren't on, or what article didn't say this about you or whatever, when you haven't experienced financial debt and bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
But also, they're going to be 10 years in when they're my age, so they win.
We'll see.
Or they'll die, yeah.
Just like Brittany Murphy.
Just like Brittany Murphy.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Okay, bye.